Let's take our first topic. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari on Wednesday hosted his South African counterpart Cyril Ramaphosa in Abuja, where they both called for a stronger emphasis on people-to-people relations between South Africa and Nigeria. The two leaders also signed new memoranda of understanding which covered diverse areas, including youth development, women and child empowerment, and political consultations. Critical areas that will lead to increased people-to-people contact. President Ramaphosa disclosed that the two countries have also jointly launched the Nigeria-South Africa Youth Dialogue, which he described as another veritable tool for interaction among youth with the aim of creating shared values and aspirations. While the Nigerian president added that the inauguration of the Joint Ministerial Advisory Council on Industry, Trade and Investment will enable the private sectors of the two largest economies in Africa to further promote economic cooperation and development. Joining us live from Abuja is a Nigerian career diplomat. He was the minister and head of political affairs at the High Commission of Nigeria, London, and the chairperson of the African Union Commission, SRCC, to Liberia. He was later appointed as the ambassador of Nigeria to France. Ambassador Akin Fayomi. Ambassador Fayomi, thank you very much for joining us on This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, where I know that at a point at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you were also head of the Africa desk before you took on additional responsibilities. Now, first, let's start with President Ramaphosa's West African trip. It was meant as a four-nation tour: Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, and Senegal. Why would South Africa consider a tour of West Africa important? We spoke with the the South African High Commissioner to South Africa on this, but it looks like a strategic move by South Africa to link up at a critical time with West Africa. What do you think, in your opinion, could be the strategic intention?
Thank you so very much, Dr. Abati, for inviting me again. Good question. I myself wondered when I first saw the itinerary: 4 big countries, West Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, and Senegal. Yes, I think it's a good move, it's a strategic move on the part of South Africa. They control SADC, the South Africa Development Corporation, all the countries there. But I also think it is essential that presidents of that nature, Nigeria inclusive, we shouldn't wait until we have AU summits in Addis Ababa before we engage ourselves bilaterally. So I actually applaud President Ramaphosa for seeing it fit, deeming it fit to embark on such a strategic trip. And don't forget, we've just been coming out of the xenophobia attacks the past 2 years, which affected a lot of West Africans domiciled in South Africa. So also that's another way of assuaging the feelings of the citizens of these 4 countries, and then also to seek closer rapport among the different West African countries with whom South Africa has excellent relations.
I'd asked you a question about the rivalry, the competition, and how the visit by the South African president can help to mitigate that, and what is the nature of that competition? How did it begin? What is the nature of the rivalry?
Thank you so very much for the question. Yes, indeed, there's always been this rivalry, in quotes, between Nigeria and South Africa. As you very well know, being the 2 biggest economies on the continent, we've always been vying with each other for one thing or the other. We used to be the giant of Africa, like I said. I deliberately use that word used because it's debatable now whether that is still a fashionable word to use. But the important thing was that South Africa was a powerhouse economically on the African continent. And then Nigeria caught up with it also on that field, even though we are the political giants after having helped them to get rid of apartheid and the liberation of Southern Africa generally. So we stand shoulder to shoulder with South Africa, maybe a little bit above it politically, but then economically they were doing much better than us until we got ahead now as the largest economy on the African continent. So that rivalry is not something like war, so I wouldn't say it is, but it's a good thing between two big countries to be competitive. So, that's why the president specifically mentioned it not being unhealthy, but it is there. Let there be rivalry, let there be competitiveness among nations, such as Nigeria and South Africa, including Egypt and Libya in those days. But then, ours particularly is a healthy one, if I may say so, and that was why we have the Binational Commission, which wasn't a coincidence that President Ramaphosa attended the 10th session here in Abuja. The Binational Commission is created among the biggest, largest economies. We normally have what we call joint commissions. That's with virtually every other country. But when you have binational commission, it's at the level of vice president or president. Ours used to be at the level of vice president in those days, Nigeria and South Africa, but it has been put up, up now to the level of presidents. And that's why President Ramaphosa and President Buhari attended the meeting. So that shows you that the foremost two countries, they must have rivalry, they must have competitiveness, but it must not degenerate into war or unhealthiness. And that's why it's good to make that pronunciation and to make that pronouncement very lucidly, so that people will know that we are fighting, in quote, over who is the leader of Africa, over who is going to go to the Security Council when that opens up. Not that we are fighting for the 2 seats there. So it's good to have such competitiveness, and I really welcome the coming of President Ramaphosa and the engagement he had, the robust engagement he had with our president.
Okay, Ambassador Fayomi, this competition or rivalry between Nigeria and South Africa, let's interrogate it further. Some Nigerians are of the firm belief that the reason this is the case is because many South Africans, the younger generation perhaps, the post-apartheid generation, has not been educated about the role that Nigeria played in the liberation of the frontline states, and particularly in the anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa. And hence, Nigerians feel disappointed when there is xenophobia against Nigerians in South Africa from about 1998 all the way up to 2020. Do you think that there's something that the South Africans need to do about that? And why do you think that, look, the average South African does not even understand the sacrifice made from the Tafawa Balewa government up to Obasanjo, Murtala Mohammed, in getting South Africa liberated, and how Nigeria's foreign policy process was very kind and supportive of South Africa after the end of apartheid in 1994. What do you think is responsible for this?
Thank you. You see, you made the right point when you said that the younger generation of South Africans, they really don't know what Nigeria did for them, what we sacrificed for them. I remember very well that if not that history was brought back into our syllabus also, many young Nigerians also will not know what Nigeria did in South Africa and Southern Africa. So that means the South Africans have a lot more to do to correct that impression, the wrong impression that the South Africans, the average young South Africans have about Nigeria being noisy and boisterous and all that. They forget that we went all out. In fact, some of us who were in primary school and secondary school, our parents were made to pay taxes, levies to the Southern Africa Relief Fund, which we used to help the apartheid war in South Africa. And then we were training most of their students came to Nigeria. Even President Mbeki was also here in Nigeria at that time as the representative of ANC. And he also addressed this issue which Dr. Abati are talking about. He mentioned it in one of the fora somewhere along the line that the leaders of South Africa, they erred by not educating their people about the role countries like Nigeria played for their emancipation from apartheid. And I think that's why President Zuma, particularly in this trip, he announced that there was going to be a youth dialogue. between Nigeria and South Africa. They are going to start that. And I think that addresses what you are mentioning, that they really need to sensitize the younger generation about the role Nigeria played in their emancipation, as well as what we have been doing after the emancipation. You correctly marked it. Since President Obasanjo came in also in 1999, democracy came to Nigeria in 1999, we ramped up our consulates in Johannesburg, the embassy in Pretoria, and we always send some of our best to head those missions, because we know the importance of our relations with South Africa. So indeed, in one sense, that youth dialogue is very important, but I even want them not to limit it to youth dialogue. We have to have regular exchanges with the businessmen and businesswomen from South Africa. I know there is a Nigeria-South Africa Chamber of Commerce. I don't know how effective it is, but whatever it is, government should also help to organize trade fairs, here and in Johannesburg, to promote, because the more we promote ourselves, the more we engage ourselves, the less violence we see, the less of that xenophobia you rightly mentioned will no longer be there, because people will then know that the Nigerians that are resident in South Africa, they are not leeches. They are not just there, they are there to work, and most of them are small and small businesses and minor businesses, but at the same time, they are impacting the economy of South Africa. So that means there is need regular interchange at different levels: women, businessmen, youth, ministers, and then presidents, which with this summit that happened last week pointed out to us very well.
Yes, Ambassador Fayomi. Yes, the President of Nigeria, President Buhari, pointed out that the South Africans have initiated this South Africa-Nigeria Youth Dialogue, which is an initiative from their side. I hope that Nigeria will respond accordingly and appropriately. But there was also the point about the President of Nigeria talking about people-to-people diplomacy. How is that people-to-people diplomacy? How is it different from Ojo Madueke? You recall when Ojo Madueke was Minister of Foreign Affairs, he talked about citizen diplomacy. And it looks like in President Buhari's reckoning, the missing link is diplomacy, the second level of diplomacy, from government to people diplomacy. What do we need to do to make that happen? Because, all of this is linked to the earlier point about xenophobia, about South Africans thinking that post-apartheid, these other Africans, whether they are from Malawi or Zimbabwe, are invading their country.
Thank you very much. Yes, indeed. I was smiling before you mentioned Chief Ojo Madueke, because I worked with him when he was foreign minister, and I remember very well that he propounded the citizen diplomacy as a veritable tool of diplomacy. It is not surprising that it is coming up now, particularly post-xenophobia. That is the major reason why there is much more emphasis on having people-to-people diplomacy. And like I actually earlier mentioned, part of this, to achieve this people-to-people diplomacy, that's why the youth dialogue is very important. That's why we have to expand trade relations, so that people know what is going on. That's why we have to have town hall meetings, maybe at our mission in Johannesburg, at our embassy in Pretoria. Likewise, the South African High Commission here in Nigeria also have to have some more engagement with the civil society in Nigeria, with not just the officials in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or the Ministry of Trade and Investment. They have to take it out, to go to states, Lagos particularly. Most of the eastern parts of Nigeria, most of our people in South Africa are from the east. So they have to have sensitization methods that will enable people to know and then to characterize each other as being brotherly. Without doing that, if you leave it to the level of just officials, ministries, and then all files are dusted and all the memoranda that are signed, they just go into one cabinet, and that is the end of it. So that's why the people-to-people diplomacy should come to the fore at this point. And Chief Ojo Madueke's citizen diplomacy is not so different. The only thing there was that Ojo Madueke's citizen diplomacy is putting responsibility of Nigerian government looking after its own citizens wherever they find them, whether it's in South Africa, or whether it's in China, or whether it's in France, or whether it's in the UK. So his own is more of rendering consular assistance to our people abroad, in the diaspora. Whereas this people-to-people is to make connections between the people of South Africa and the people of Nigeria. And there are so many avenues you can use, which I've mentioned some. Trade fairs, town hall meetings, exhibitions, cultural issues. The President Ramaphosa mentioned Nollywood in his speech. That's why they signed a cultural agreement whereby more Nigerian actors and movie directors, they can even be shooting some of these movies there. So the more Nigerians they go to South Africa, the more South Africans also come here. Then the promotion of people-to-people diplomacy will be a foregone conclusion.
Well, I mean, you refer to a point that was also an issue because earlier in the week we had the South African High Commissioner on another program, the morning show. And he said, look, the two presidents expressed concern about different memoranda that had been signed in the past, and there was no follow-up. And you just said, look, these ministry officials, they just keep those things in the files. Why is that the case? And my own opinion is that, the short end of the stick is usually held by the Nigerian side, the Foreign Affairs Ministry in Nigeria. We sign all these memoranda, agreements, bilateral agreements all over the world, but we come back home and we just drop the ball. Is it about the quality of personnel at the Nigerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs? Because I've observed this over the years. And what can be done beyond two presidents saying, review the things we didn't work on in the past? What went wrong with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Nigeria? You are a product of that department.
It's not only the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Abati. That's my constituency. I know that there are shortcomings there also. But then, Binational Commission covers virtually every aspect of relations. Culture, trade, health, defense, security. The foreign affairs aspect of it is very small. That's just the diplomatic aspect. Most of these agreements that are signed are taken to the home ministries. We call them, what I mean by home ministries, other ministries and departments and agencies of government. Foreign ministries, that's why we refer to other ministries as home ministries. So they are the ones to actualize the agreements, not the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It's domesticated with us because of issues like this, but then the other ministries are supposed to take care of their own angles and pick the ball and run with it. You mentioned that they dropped the ball. Unfortunately, maybe standards are falling quite right. Education has fallen quite right. The personnel recruited into most of these government ministries and every part of Nigerian society, they are not as good as it was in the good old days of the civil service. So invariably, something has to be done. We have to revamp not just the ministries, but the education sector, because it's from the education that will involve that will actually show the kind of personnel that government will employ. So to say, it is good for the president to mention it, and I just hope that the ministers, that's why there are so many ministers there for the various ministries, I hope they will, then shovel it down the throat of some of their officials and say, look, this agreement, let's do it in 6 months. Give them bylines. The Binational Commission is supposed to be done every 2 years, but unfortunately, it went moribund after a while. That's also part of government's blame. But now it is being resuscitated, and I just hope that with the resuscitation, there will be timelines to say, agreement on trade and investment, we need this in 18 months. We have to get our trade to move from whatever the amount it is now, double that amount. The agreement on sports, we need to move it. We transfer, we exchange. Coaches going to train in South Africa, South African coaches coming here to do that. Trade fairs will be done. Chambers of commerce should be expanded. So these are the ways that all these agreements can be actualized, not just to leave them to government officials. And that's why I said again, the emphasis on people-to-people probably will ginger up some of the activities that are gathering dust here and there. And because really, it is very important. The two countries are the two largest, the biggest on the African continent. Whatever happens to us, the two of us, will affect all the other regions, all the other countries. So that's why I really feel much that the impetus this visit has brought should not be allowed to die. The momentum is now. We have to seize it. And you rightly said, most of the time is from our side that we have this shortcoming. So that I just hope that this will bring a message to our ministries, our officials, as well as the business, the organized private sector, NACIMA, LCCI, the rest of them, that the time is ripe to increase relations at every level with our brother in the South.
Ambassador, I have just two more questions for you. The first one is what you referred to, the South Africa-Nigeria Chamber of Commerce. But if you look at the balance of trade between Nigeria and South Africa, it will look like South Africa has a competitive advantage. Yes, they buy our crude oil, but at the same time, over 200 South African countries operating in Nigeria, some of them making more than a third of their profits from the Nigerian market. But Nigeria does not have that advantage in South Africa. Earlier on, you referred to the fact that most Nigerian businesses in South Africa are small and medium-scale enterprises, and yet they get attacked for xenophobic reasons. How can Nigeria scale up so that the relationship between both countries at the level of trade and investment will seem to be balanced or close to being balanced?
Yes, it can never be balanced, but like you said, because see, we have MTN is here, very huge. DSTV, they are here, very huge. ShopRite is here, very huge. So they have that advantage over us, because they are taking advantage of our large population, over 200 million. So who wouldn't want to come open shop in Nigeria? So in our own case, we are also now moving into their banking sector. I know that we have 2 or 3 banks, First Bank, UBA, Union Bank. Now Access Bank just went in there a few weeks ago. So, and that means if we corner the banking sector like they have cornered our retail sector here with ShopRite and all that, then there will be coming to some level of balance. It will still be higher than ours because they are more here because of our population. They are taking advantage of that. There's really nothing Nigerians are going to do in South Africa per se. That's why we have small and medium operatives in South Africa. Most of our professionals, though, that they have there, like lecturers, professors, doctors, they are all over there in South Africa, and that's where our strength is in the term of the personnel that we have there. Not the little percentage that we have in the news are the traders and the people that are trying to, in quote, the South Africans say they want to steal their market and things like that. But a lot of our professionals are in the universities, are in the courts as justices and all that. So we also exchange. We have a large group of people in South Africa. But like you rightly said, the only way this can come to near balance is for Nigeria to ramp up its trade activities. And that was why I earlier mentioned in Nigeria, South Africa Chamber of Commerce. If you recollect, I said I'm not sure how effective they really are. So that means that is another area that the Ministry of Trade, they can call them in, and the organized private sector, NACIMA, FCCI, MAN, and say, look, let's do something about South Africa. Let's go and do a study there. What and where can Nigerians move into? Is it mining sector? Is it movie sector? Is it, so that's how you can engage the organized private sector, by thrusting them into prominence. Because most of the time they just come along with the president. 2-3 people that can afford the ticket are carried along to go do business forum in the country the president is going to. But if you can mobilize large numbers of them or energize the chambers of commerce, and then you can see we can start getting reward for our hard work there.
Well, Ambassador, I would have loved to talk about Nigeria, South Africa in the context of Omicron and that African Brotherhood diplomacy by Nigeria. But I want to reserve that question for our next guest on this program, Professor Sunday Umilabu, Professor of Virology from the University of Lagos. But I'd like to ask you about another issue that we may be looking at today, and that has to do with the China-Africa Forum that took place in Dakar, Senegal. And the Chinese, President Xi Jinping, dipping into that meeting and saying that China is only promising $40 million support for African countries in the next 3 years, which is about 33.3% reduction in terms of support for African countries. China being the major, investor in African countries. Now, why is China developing a cold field, cutting down on its engagement in Africa? Is it because it's beginning to imagine that there is diminishing returns with African countries taking loans from China? Uganda cannot pay for its railway. Kenya cannot pay for its superhighway. Ethiopia is having problems, and so on and so forth. Quickly, before we move on.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Abati. I'm sure if you are the president of China, you yourself will want to scale down your expenditure in places where you are not. You have put your on the point. So many African countries are owing China, and they cannot pay back the debts that they have owed. Even we took loans here and there to build our railway and all that, and then bandits are blowing up the railway tracks. And then how do you generate money to return that the debt that you have taken? So I won't say it's cold feet per se, but I'll just say that they are just taking a step backwards, which is not too bad. And then we can also use the opportunity to look for other partners. We don't all have to rely on China. Don't forget that before China came in, it was the West, UK and the USA and the EU. And then we now move to China. So maybe it's also time to strategically align ourselves among ourselves. That's why the AfCFTA, it's a good thing. Let us trade among ourselves in Africa here. Why do you have to go cap in hand begging for loans all over the place? We can do it here. That's my take on that.
Okay. Well, I said $40 million. The actual figure is $40 billion to China. $40 million in 3 years will probably be small money. But the percentage reduction is correct. It's 33.3%. But we'll see how all of that plays out. I want to thank you very much, Ambassador Fayomi, for joining us on this Live, this Sunday talk show. Thank you very much indeed.